Um, I think you see these bills coming out, and I wonder behind the scenes how many, Republicans are all most likely on the same page, but I'm wondering how many Democrats there are who, once this kind of, the rubber meets the road, are they going to back this when they know it's such a third rail of politics right now and they're going to get massive pushback? What's your kind of take on what's the temperature of Sacramento about these bills?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I'm hoping for, is that I think that there's a lot of these, I think there's a lot of parents speaking up. I think there's a lot of constituents contacting their assembly member and talking about these issues and also a lot of other issues like, what are you doing to address the fentanyl crisis that's killing our kids, right? What are
Mm-hmm.
you doing about crime, which is rampant and everybody's experiencing it? And it sort of puts a lot of these Democrats, on, it helps keep them honest. It keeps them accountable. So how are you going to vote on these issues? And however you vote, you are going to be held accountable come November. And I think as this pressure builds, I am at least hopeful that we'll see, many Democrats kind of come over and either vote against these bills or maybe just abstain from them, which could ultimately help stop, some of these bad bills from actually gaining passage and becoming law.
Going off that topic of fentanyl, you've been doing a lot of work on fentanyl. Why don't you tell us what's going on in terms of fentanyl and your kind of battle legislatively with that?
Yeah, I mean, this is another one that just is like, it boggles the mind. We have a serious crisis on our hands. We have for at least the past 3, 4 years with fentanyl. I mean, it's killing our kids. We have kids that take a pill that they think is maybe a Percocet. It ends up being fentanyl laced. They take one pill and they die. We're seeing it on our streets. People dying on the streets from fentanyl overdoses. Over 100 a week now, I believe is what it is
Oh,
that we're
wow.
seeing. And I would say like for the last few years, Republicans have been trying to push bills, um, to try and get more penalties on dealers, on the people who are peddling this poison. And then this year, we've had Democrats who've actually stepped up and even introduced bills. One being Alexandra's law, which would have it's really simple. This is a very simple and should be a very common sense bill. If you've actually already dealt fentanyl laced pills and you killed someone, then you get what's called a Watson advisement that, hey, if you do this again, you could be charged with murder, right? So this is saying like, hey, if the second time you go and do this, you could then be charged with murder. And that's all it is an advisement, and then it allows the prosecutor to do that. That bill couldn't even get out of Senate Public Safety. It was a Democratic author, Tom Umberg. It had 21 co-authors in the Senate, which means it has a majority support in the Senate. And this Public Safety Committee in the Senate wouldn't pass it out, so it got stopped in its tracks. And we've just seen this time and time again. These public safety committees, like
It's
last,
like
the
SB
assembly,
14.
SB 14,
It's so
child
similar.
trafficking. Like, are you kidding
I mean,
me?
it was like the same terms, like second time.
Right. Yeah, again, like something that's very like, are we going to go after the perpetrators of crime who are doing horrendous things to our kids, trafficking, enslaving kids, and selling them for sex, or killing people with these fentanyl laced pills? Why can't you bring yourself? And the great thing is, it's finally getting the exposure that it's needed. I would say these guys have been doing this for at least the last 10 years, like killing bills that should pass, that are good public safety measures, and it's all because of this radical view that they have, which is there should be no new penalties for crime. We have too many people in prison, and we should let everybody out, with really no rehabilitation whatsoever, and think that we're just going to talk these people into like not committing crimes anymore. That's
Mm-hmm.
their view. They really believe that, and they've had you know the power, and they've pushed these policies through, and now we're seeing the results of them. We have people getting out who are committing atrocious crimes against people, mass shootings, and it's all because of this policy. But now it's finally getting exposure, and people are seeing, that the emperor has no clothes here, right? And I think that's going to make a difference. That people are going to say, look, we're tired of that. We need real public safety. We need common sense measures, and so we've been able to. I think we've been able to really expose that. We've gotten some measures through, this year. But the big one on fentanyl is like we need real penalty for the dealers.
Mm.
So if you're found with a bunch of pills, fentanyl laced pills, there should be real serious penalties so that you can't be victimizing people anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's definitely in that umbrella of like kitchen table politics that I think California Republicans can really grab a hold of in terms of parental rights, public safety. And Democrats are just failing right now. And I think they've gone down this road of being loose on crime and being the compassion party that says, well, we got to be soft on crime and soft on the criminals. But now it's like come home to roost. And you see it in San Francisco, you see it in Oakland, you see these cities being absolutely overrun. I mean, it's like a Batman movie. Like it's just gotten so bad with crime that it's you just look at
Gotham
it and go, well,
City.
it's exactly like Gotham City. I mean, you see this stuff and you go, these cities have collapsed under the weight of crime. I mean, London Breed is like she's trying her best to get her hands around it now, but it's like too little, too late. She was soft
She's
on
like a
crime when she was elected.
reborn crime fighter, right? Now she's like, yeah, we're
Yeah,
going to go after there. We're going to get tough on people. And they're like, well, hey, man, like you created this situation. You
Exactly,
supported pretty much
exactly.
everything. Yeah.
Do they not
yeah.
realize this? Your policies did this.
What happened, by the
Exactly.
way, to all the? Wasn't there this like big offensive or front of like there was going to be CHP and National Guard and like this
Right.
coordinated effort? I haven't heard anything about that. Is that another Newsom publicity stunt where he had like, I'm going to bring in all these different organizations and law enforcement to clean up San Francisco, and I haven't seen any of it. So
Newsom's
um,
gonna fly in as Batman.
Not at all,
Newsom,
man. Yeah, I mean, I saw he made that big announcement, and then you see, like, well, what actually happened? I was actually thinking about actually going out on the street and, like, doing some video, like, hey, you guys seeing CHP? Are they, have they been cracking heads around here or what? Like, I was in San Francisco not too long ago, and I didn't really see any evidence of it, man. Like, there was, I saw the open air drug sites.
mm-hmm,
These cartel type folks. I can't remember. There's been stories about that. These people are actually, you know, committing burglaries and theft on the street, and they're kind of been left to just kind of run rampant. I guess they're, London Breed is talking about cracking down on these kind of, cartel like groups. But I certainly didn't see any evidence of this big crackdown, and we're still seeing overdose deaths every day in San Francisco. And again, it's a natural result of their policies, which have decriminalized, drugs, decriminalized crime, and really had no penalties or accountability if you're victimizing people. It's the other one in the Bay Area that's terrible, like Asian hate. Like people walking
mm-hmm,
up to elderly Asian people and just punching them in the face. This is it's rampant because there's no accountability for crime, and a lot of the Asian community in the Bay Area has really been voicing this, like going to town halls saying, "Will somebody do something about this?" They have a woke DA there, Pamela Price, who again doesn't prosecute crime, doesn't believe in prosecuting crime. They had an infant boy who was killed by cross gunfire, in the area, and there still has been really no result, no real action on that. So a lot of the Asian community, API community, is saying, look, what are you doing to actually stop this rampant hate crime that's going on,
mm-hmm.
in our communities? And because of this radical worldview that they have, they're not seeing the results. But again, I think we're seeing a counterstroke, where people are rising up and saying enough is enough.
Pamela Price, who I believe is facing a recall right now. So, power of the recall to get rid of some of these
Right.
woke DA soft on crime. As the leader of the Republican Assembly Caucus, is there a lot of talk in terms of strategy and reaching out to voters in California about a lot of these kitchen table issues and kind of saying like, look, here's our solution. We're completely different than Democrats. We're not just doing Democrat light. Like we have bolder these are conservative solutions, and like we're going to go after these kitchen table politics, or kitchen table issues, I should say.
Yes, and so I mean, this when I came in as leader last year, so it was in February. The big thing I said is like, guys, we got to go on the offensive. You know, like we've always been on, you know, the defensive, on our heels, like responding to what the Democrats are doing. We have to start saying, hey, here, let's put things out there that we want to do and make them be the ones that say no. And
Yeah.
so you probably saw that it started with the gas tax suspension. We're saying, look, repeal the gas tax right now. We have a $100 billion surplus. People are struggling to pay at the pump. The least we could do is take the tax off of it, which would have saved everybody instantly, you know, on gas money. And so we pushed that, and the Democrats said no. You know, they continually voted against it. And we use that as an issue of, I think, a very strong issue with voters to say, look, they don't want to give you relief. You know, Gavin came out and said, we're going to give you rebate checks, right? And I think people laughed at that, and you know, they couldn't even get you the rebate checks out. It took forever to get them out to people, and when they were, you know, very small. Didn't really hardly put a dent in what they were paying and at the pump.
My wife
And
actually, she actually found a rebate check. Like I was going through a stack of papers and I was cleaning the office, and I look and I go, honey, do you know you have one of these like stimulus cards or whatever she got? She goes, oh, I thought this was like a scam or something. And I was like, no. And I looked it up and I was like, yeah, this is legit. It was like, so we got
yeah,
the $200. We didn't spend it on gas, so just took
yeah,
ourselves out for a nice date night. Thank you, Gavin Newsom.
yeah. There
But
you
yeah,
go. Yeah.
talking
Did you?
about
You
going
probably
on
couldn't
the
go to the French
offensive.
Laundry though, right, Phil?
No, I mean, I think we'd get through one appetizer. That's probably about all we could get through at the French Laundry. But then again, I'm not best friends with an oil and gas industry lobbyist like whatever is it, Richard Kinney? Is that his name? His Gavin's good buddy. But besides the point, that is like so refreshing to hear this idea of going on the offensive, because anybody who's listened to me talk about this and ramble on it for a long time, I've been saying this about California Republicans for a long time, and Camille could probably attest to this. You have to go on the offensive because you have to frame the argument and make Democrats argue in your frame. And when you're always reactionary, you're arguing in their frame. And when that happens, you're going to lose 9 times out of 10. So when you set up the argument, Democrats are going to lose because you've already set the argument. You've set the tone of what it's going to be about. So exactly with like the gas tax, you took the offensive and said, look, you're getting taxed. You need relief. It's already expensive. Make the Democrats argue that point back. And I thought that, that's a great, refreshing move to see California Republicans do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's exactly what we have been doing. So more broadly, we announced this thing called the California Promise, and we put that out there. Hey, here are the lists of proposals that we would do, and we kind of broke it down into some categories. Like, here's what we would do to actually cut your costs, like affordability issues, right? Here's what we would do on homelessness. Instead of having this enablement strategy, we would have an empowerment strategy. Get people off the street, get them into services and treatment if they want it, right? But otherwise, like, we need to start enforcing on encampments, right? We shouldn't have encampments next to schools, next to child care centers. And we had a bill that actually did that, and ran that bill and made them be the ones to say no, right? Then on crime and public safety, we say, hey, here's the things we would do to hold criminals accountable. We would get rid of these emergency credits, these credits that let people get out of prison, years before their sentence is up. Reverse that policy and say, no, you actually have to show us that you're rehabilitated, that you're actually doing things to change, your mindset and your way of life. And so we put out like, hey, here's our alternative policies. We ran bills along those front. And then this year, like, the fentanyl, we've run fentanyl bills. They've said no. So we've exposed that and showed them, for who they are. SB 14, you guys don't want to crack down on, child traffickers. Okay, well, everybody needs to know that. And we'll take this into November, and we'll take our case to the voters and let them decide. And I think, the more we can do that, to your point, the more we can really show just how radical they are and how they are saying no and how they're the ones that are really in the way of, good policy. The more that I think we're going to be successful at the ballot box.
Yeah, and it's in my mind, at least in my humble opinion, I think voters vote for things rather so much than against things. And I think when they're thinking about their lives and these kitchen table issues, they want to vote for a solution, not just a party that goes, well, we're not Democrats. Okay, well, that doesn't mean anything that you're not Democrats. The Democrats are promising X, Y, and Z, whether they can actually get it done or not, or just blowing smoke. It's something. So I think it's got to be more substantive, where there is that this is what we're going to do, and this is our substantive answer to that. So
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can't be the one saying, "Hey, I just don't like what the Democrats are doing." Right. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
which there's plenty of material there, right? Like, there's plenty of things that they're failing at, but then you
Right.
got
yeah,
to show, hey, what would you do differently? And I think that's what voters are looking for. So that's what we're trying to
Exactly.
provide.
Yeah. I point out the issue, but give me your solution.
I think the other thing we battle too is, a lot of times like mainstream media, it's hard to get our message in there, right? Because it's like I said, Gavin's got the bully pulpit. He does a press conference and it always gets covered. The Democrats kind of have the advantage there. And so we've just really tried to push, like, how can we get our message out? How do we get earned media? But then also, how do we get our message out in alternative media? So, talking to folks like yourselves on podcasts, on, social media, like really trying to, we've certainly bumped up and boosted our messaging on different forms of social media, just to try and make sure that we can get that message out. Cause that is a challenge. I mean, it is a challenge when you're in the minority party. But it's something that I put an emphasis on because, look, if they don't know what you're doing, if people don't hear what you're doing, they don't know what you're doing, then it didn't happen,
Right.
right?
yeah.
And we don't want to be in that situation. So I appreciate you guys, for really covering a lot of these different topics, and you've got a huge following, and it helps get, people information that they may not otherwise hear.
Oh,
Thank you.
oh, we appreciate that. Thank you.